What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Facts on the Ground. I'm Misty Winston, joined by my co-host Jesse Zerwell. Today, I'm very excited. We have two of my friends on the show who are also the amazing co-hosts of the new show To Hell and Back, which is a really hardcore look at the opioid addiction in this country, and they're doing an amazing job so far. So thank you to Chanda and Pasta. Thanks for being on the show, you guys. I'm really excited to talk about this.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so I want to ask first, just how the show got started. Like, what was, because I know that Shonda, like, I know your story, and I just like, how did you guys get together and decide that you were going to do the show? Because I think I'm surprised. Like when you guys started it, I'm like, wow, why is nobody doing this? Why is nobody?
Yeah, right.
It was really something overdue. So, what made you guys come together and start this?
We talked about it before DC, I know that, but really when we came to DC in March, we were like, let's do this. But I know we talked about it before that. Pasta, he knows. We always have this saying in the community that you kind of gravitate towards each other. We gravitated towards each other, and we decided, let's do this. People need to talk about the truth about it. My truth was, when you live in poverty, these type of medications that are being prescribed become a currency in your community. And that was my big thing is we're not going to tackle this until we make people understand how much of a currency it is.
Yeah. It's actually kind of funny when we did definitely kind of say, all right, we got to do this. You were in the room with us, Misty.
Yeah.
We were in DC. So it's when we all met, the energy was just there. And, to be honest with you, I've been really inspired by the work of Reverend Annie Chambers. And, she would always talk about the Poor People's Campaign. And obviously looking at old school Fred Hampton and some of those Bobby Seals videos when they go into these poor areas, these white poor areas, whatnot, and stuff like that. And it kind of shows that, they're also a victim of the system itself. Well, after talking with Shanda and having so many friends too, as well, several friends who have been to hell and back, and that's how we came up with the name of the show, is that when you face addiction, when you're involved with an addiction, you come very close to walking towards hell. And if you come back to tell your story, then we need to get it out there because, this is a definitely, when you look at the numbers when it comes to opioid death, and what big pharma is doing to us. And that's why it's so kind of crazy that we're doing this show right now in the middle of this pandemic with big pharma trying to take control of the narrative and what you should do. Well, we just thought it was important to get these messages across. And me, Misty and Jess, like, when it comes to Fee, you find a superstar and you get behind them and you just roll with it. And when it came to Shanda talking about this, her life, she had been to hell and back, and she is a very big advocate of Kratom, and Kratom might be a solution to some of the opioid addiction out there. She just was so rich and ripe with so much, information that I was like, yeah, let's do this. I'll be the pretty one. You tell the story just like me and Fee, and we just let it rip.
What fears or hesitancies did you have going into this? Because you probably knew from the get-go that you were going to get a lot of pushback from all angles.
Right. My biggest fear was telling my truth, being able to tell people I know what the fuck I'm talking about because most of my family are on these opiates, these things, and have been for 20 fucking years, and having to live that truth simultaneously as trying to be involved politically and publicly local. It was horrifying to know that my local Central Dem committee was gonna know everything about my addictions because they love to dox everybody, right? So, oh great, now they're gonna, get a hold of my kids' arrest records or my, my family's. That was one of the biggest fears for me. And the pushback, I think we've been embraced more than we've had pushback. We get pushback from the shitlibs on everything. So to me, this is like the embrace that we get from people that are so fired up to hear our stories, to hear our perspective, but to get their stories involved too.
You know what? I really don't have. I didn't have a lot of fears, to be honest with you. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think another moment that was really kind of an opportunity to jump on this was seeing what Chris Christie said. When he was running for office and stuff, and he talked about his best friend who'd fell victim to opioid addictions. And he, I think that was an opportunity for me to get on in there because a lot of conservatives, they're old school. They believe it's just say no. The mentality was one of the first episodes we started off with Shanda, but I saw an opportunity. In there for people to understand what was going on, how there's a death wheel on society. I've been to North Georgia. One of the episodes I went up to North Georgia, there's an ex-friend of mine who actually is in drug court right now. And she went to hell and back, and we almost lost her. Well, I went into that area in northern Georgia with this poor white, predominantly white area, and just seeing all these people who are victims, you know what I'm saying, to the opioid addiction, because it was mainly their doctors that would give them an opioid for the first time. And when you just tie everything together with Big Pharma and you see that, and you can get that story out there, we can get an understanding of what's going on. I've also hoped that it would be a good form of solidarity, right? Like, you know, I'm a man who believes in reparations. I really do. You know what I'm saying? But I also believe there's a lot of poor white people right now that are a victim of the system. And if we can see how the death wheel is coming for everybody. Now, it might not be coming for us equally, but when it comes to opioid addiction, you know, primarily those numbers are poor white people who the big tech and fucking Big Pharma, they don't give a shit about either. So I was really hoping that it would be a form of solidarity to bring us all together to understand what we're fighting upstairs. And the only little fear there was to make sure that I wasn't being looked upon as a guy who was just pushing an issue and trying to make it about poor white people. You know what I'm saying? I did have that fear coming from this left, you know, kind of arena where if you don't recognize certain things, especially when it comes to race, that you can be looked upon as like, oh my God, look at this. He's just trying to say, you know, he's trying to make this look harder than this.
Nuance is dead.
No.
Nuance is dead. You're not like, there's not a lot. And that was one of my favorite episodes, Pasta, actually, because I think that it did a really good job of pointing, because I think that, you know, most of us are cognitively aware of the fact that most people start off on opioids through their doctors. I mean, to me, that's just common knowledge. Like they were handing them out like candy for a long time. And, you know, so I think that, nobody really talks about that aspect. And the two people that you interviewed on that show, like one, I think the first time that she had ever really gotten in trouble, she was like 40 or like 30 or something.
41.
Like, yeah.
She was
like
41 first time she got arrested.
And that's, I mean, that's like, that wasn't somebody who like partied their entire life and that was, you know, somebody who was living their life, got an injury of some kind, went to their doctor who they trusted, who was seen as like an authority figure. I mean, that's in our society, your doctor is seen as somebody that you listen to and that you trust and that you do what they say. You know what I'm saying? And so your doctor hands you this medication and tells you to take it. And you have no idea what you're getting into. And then the next thing you know, you're buying heroin off the street corner. You know what I mean? And that's it. It's that quick. It's that, I mean, it really can be that fast for a lot of people, but we don't talk about that aspect of it. So that was one of my favorite episodes. I thought you did a really good job of like driving that home and making people see, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also,
I mean, go ahead, Jesse. I'm sorry.
What goes forgotten so often is that this problem, this plague of opioids had been going on for so long before it started garnering national and international attention. And it was primarily when it hit the suburbs, white middle class and upper class suburbs, that people really started paying attention to it. So that's another aspect of the class part of it, if you will.
I know, you're right. Absolutely.
Yeah. I was just going to say too as well, and that's just a great point, Jesse, because that's when people started paying attention to it. When Chris Christie did tell his story, right, about that was his good friend, you know, they were highly educated, come from money, the whole 9 yards. Now people are like, oh my God, they're listening to it, and then they dive deeper into it. Well, how many deaths on opioids were there last year? Oh, in 2019 there were 75,000 reported opioid deaths. Well, what do you think it's going to be in fucking 2020 during the pandemic? You know what I'm saying? Like that. Now people are like, holy cow, what the hell's going on? And it also had the veterans. I don't want to forget about the veteran thing, because a lot of, you know, and you know me, I'm all about bridging the gap. I believe in talking to everybody. I try to talk to a lot of conservatives to see what a lot of us on the left are thinking. I'm kind of giving up on the ship libs, but I'm still trying to work with the progressives and stuff like that. But you know what I'm saying? I'm still trying to repair that breach. And a lot of these conservatives are like pro-veteran, pro-military. You know what I'm saying? They always make that false dichotomy. Well, I'd rather give money to a veteran than an immigrant. It's like, yeah, don't conflate that fucking thing right over there as well. But a lot of veterans that come back from fighting these wars, and we were talking about this the other day, 22 kill themselves every day. 20 of them are white males that are fucking, a lot of them have suffered from opioid addiction because they can't deal due to the PTSD, and it's just a death wheel for them to get as well. So that's why I always try people realizing, like, yo, remember, we're in the death wheel. It doesn't care. It's going to grab everybody.
No,
so
you're right.
Just
Another example of that is the NFL, Pasta. I met a retired Seahawk a couple of years ago down at the marijuana store that I managed, and the statistics he told me about addiction inside the NFL that's not reported was fucking shocking. It was something like 87%
It
of
has
NFL,
to be.
right? Because you get hurt, take a pill, get back out on the field.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
No, they'll shoot you up in the locker room, fam.
Yeah.
They'll shoot you up in the locker
that
room.
too,
Get
yeah,
back
with the
out there.
cortisone.
Yeah.
But they
I
do
mean-
fall to opioid addiction too as well. And one of the
Mhm.
reasons is, and I remember talking about this all the time, Brett Favre hurt himself. He got addicted to opioids bad.
Yeah.
He had to go to rehab in between seasons to try to knock this thing out. And yet he was okay. They let him back in the league, and there was no penalty, no nothing, because everything was prescribed by a doctor. Meanwhile, Ricky Williams, who was a running back who was used as a battering ram, would use marijuana, and he wouldn't just smoke it. He would use bombs and whatnot.
Right.
And they threw him out of the fucking league and stuff. And you can just see the difference between the two, where it's like, oh, you can't smoke marijuana, but you can get addicted to opioids. And that is, to me, was a huge problem. And yeah, I don't even want to talk about the NFL right now when it comes to the other thing. Forget about it. Don't get me started.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, it really is, it's just not covered. When we talk about addiction, it's so often covered improperly, or I don't know if improperly is the right word, but insignificantly. Like there isn't enough. They don't really try to dive deep into, like, you guys have gone like all the way back. Like, it's like a history lesson. That's why I think it's such a wide ranging topic of conversations on the show. And I think that's like what is really missing from the conversation is, like, you went and talked to actual addicts, and you're discussing alternatives like kratom, and the way, maybe you should talk about that a little bit, Chanda, because that's I think that's something that more people need to know about, especially because a lot of people, especially now in the pandemic, drug use has gone up exponentially. Drinking has gone up exponentially. People are depressed and they're lonely and they're scared, and so maybe we can talk a little bit about that so that people know that there's something out there that could potentially help. And I know that you're very specific, this isn't for everybody, but yeah, let's talk about that a little bit.
And that's the first thing I say. This is very specific. It isn't for everybody. There's a saying that your kid's not going to find kratom. It's only after that they've found a true addiction that they are fighting for their life from that they're going to find kratom. And I find that to be true pretty much, other than people dabbling with it just because they hear other people talking about it. Kratom is a whole leaf tree that grows in Southeast Asia. And we buy the leaves as a tea. You grind it up and you drink it. For most opiate addicts who were taking a big enough dose like I was, or if you were on the streets using, say, heroin, if you'd had moved over, you would need a pretty big dose of this every couple of hours. But the thing is it holds back withdrawal symptoms and DTs. So you get, when you're detoxing off of, I came off of methadone, which I think is one of the worst drugs in the whole fucking world. When I came off of it, I could not get my sense of homeostasis. I could never not be sweating. I could never hold still. I would sit and rock. I couldn't find normalcy, and I had no energy. Even bending over to tie my shoes was a chore. I'd have to sit down and take a 10-minute break after that, so that was a year after quitting. So when I started hearing about reports of kratom in like 2013, it was, oh, that stuff's evil. It's like spice, that shit, that synthetic marijuana that we saw break out across the country, which is all chemicals. And it wasn't. Yeah, exactly. And it wasn't. So I started doing research, and there wasn't a lot of research around the globe. Oxford had some Oxford files on it. And so I read up as much as I could. I started talking to doctors because I have a lot of friends who are doctors, and none of them had really heard of it, but they were excited by the prospect of something that could help people. And so I started taking it, and I was scared when I started taking it. I was, I felt like a guinea pig, but I was doing it to myself because at that point I was praying to God to either give me something to change the way that I was living, or it was time to OD and just go, because I couldn't bear to continue down that path anymore after 10 years of withdrawals and playing the opiate game. And mine started in a doctor's office, just like everybody, bad knees, bad back, those things. You go in, and back then, they gave them to you like freaking Tic Tacs. I mean, you got a little pain here. We used to joke about how easy it was to go get a script out of your doctor. Like, oh, I could have one in 10 minutes, no problem, So after I started taking kratom, my life completely 100% changed. I mean, and kratom doesn't get you high. And that's the one thing I always try to tell people is, like, you're not going to get high off kratom unless you have a very clean system and it's the first time you're ever trying something like this. For me, it just makes me normal. It makes my homeostasis there. It makes me a functioning member of society again, which I never thought I would be 10 years ago. Absolutely never thought. So Kratom is being attacked by the FDA. They tried to shut us down in 2016. It's funny how the FDA is all of a sudden so powerful over the last 10 fucking years. They sidestepped the comment period, public comment. They did it illegally the way they came at us. And we got attorneys and lobbyists, and we started fighting back. Those around the country who had realized, oh my God, this could be the answer for millions of people. We're not even allowed to talk about it, right? We're not allowed to talk about alternatives in this country. If it doesn't come from big pharma, then shut the fuck up. Mm-hmm. And so we fought them back, and so then they sidestepped us and tried to come at us through the DEA. Okay, now we're going to do enforcement, and they shut down all shipments globally. They put a lot of us in a panic for 6 months, but we do have some strong lobbyists. Funny, they're on the Republican side mostly. I mean, but this is definitely a nonpartisan issue because I see support and them against it on both sides of the aisle. But so that was as of 2016. We made it to now, and we got left alone during the Trump years. We didn't, it's that Scott Gottlieb, that piece of shit that was head of the FDA for so long. He whispered in Biden's ear, hey, maybe you should come after Kratom again. So now they're pushing for an international ban with who? The WHO of all fucking people, because now they're the authority. And so that's where we're at. We're pushing back, but we've had really good success. We've had better success in the Kratom community politically than I have seen in any community.
It's like weed. We can't talk about that either. We know it's effective.
Right.
We know it can treat a multitude of different issues, from depression to cancer symptoms to PTSD, whatever. But we can't have that conversation because Big Pharma doesn't want us to have that conversation.
No. Yeah.
Also, the cotton and lumber industry doesn't want us to have that conversation too, as well. Because as Chanda brought to the table when we did one of our first or second episodes, we go back to the history of the weed. You know what I'm saying? Like it wasn't the Sackler family for that. Excuse me. Was it Hearst, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Who pretty much banned because they were the printing press. And it goes back to, oh my God, now we're printing stuff on marijuana and THC that just comes out like crazy. And how many things would that replace? I mean, I think about plastic bottles. I look at them all the day, every single day. And I go, Jesus Christmas, why don't we just move to hemp? Why don't we have hemp fucking bottles that will be biodegradable in the ocean, that by the time they end up over there, because only just like 5% of our plastic is recyclable. I mean, it's crazy to think about why they're doing these things, but there are reasons, because there's big money interest in why we can't have these conversations. And also just to the point what Chanda was talking about, she said she was at a point that she said, give me something to help me or just take me away, right? And I was like, we were talking about, I'm like, Jesus Christ, that's just like hell. You're in a mind hell. And I think that's eventually where we came to the point with to hell and back, because now she's back. She's made it back from hell, and she gets to live to tell the story. And that's why I love doing the show that we do.
So speaking of alternative treatments, if you will, let's pivot to ivermectin and the COVID-19 vaccine. all of the things underneath that we're not allowed to talk about. Ivermectin's obviously been in the news lately because of Joe Rogan and for other reasons, but I'd like to get both of your takes on that, and perhaps your assessments as to why we're not even allowed to talk about it, let alone pursue it in any legitimate way as a treatment.
I just watched a county commissioners meeting in Florida. I can't remember what county it was, but they're trying to post a resolution saying that patients can actually ask for it and will be prescribed it in their county. And we've got something similar going on in my county because we're under vaccine passports now. So you can't go into a bar or restaurant unless you've had it. I've refused to take it, even though I have family members in the house who have had it. It's my personal choice. I feel like that I don't trust Big Pharma not to poison me. Everything for 20 years, all of the drugs that they put me on for so long poisoned me. I finally feel like I'm at a place where I'm not subservient to Big Pharma anymore. And it kind of sucks to be, I call myself a pharmaceutical refugee. because when I get sick, I don't just go to the doctor and be like, yeah, give me something. Because a lot of times they want to give me things that I can't have or that I don't want to have, and that I don't think are the right treatment. But who are you? You're not a doctor, right? Well, that's what they tell you when you come in and you ask for ivermectin. Oh, you're not a doctor. We're not prescribing that. So we're not even getting access to these alternative treatments that just because they're off label. Almost everything a doctor fucking prescribes is off label. If they had to bring to market every single thing that's on that list of shit it does, they would never be able to afford to put any drugs forward. So it's just stupid, this whole off label argument that I hear so many doctors. I heard a doctor earlier doing that. There's other
complaining
treatments.
about off-level uses.
Yeah,
Really?
these
A
aren't
doctor?
even approved for this. I was like, you're a doctor and you're saying that? Like, what the fuck? Yeah, and there's other stuff like the monocolonial infusion, IV infusions, which are shortening the life of your COVID symptoms by fucking weeks. And every primary care provider across the country can provide it, but because it's not being advised to these everyday clinicians around the country, they don't know to use it. And so we need more public awareness out there to be putting pressure that, hey, maybe you guys should be offering this shit to people as soon as they get diagnosed with a new case of COVID.
Yeah. Well, like we said before the show, right? Like ivermectin is safer than fucking aspirin. So if the only remedy, according to the CDC, the WHO, and the FDA, pre-hospitalization for COVID is to go home and take some ibuprofen or take some aspirin, then why not just take the ivermectin anyways? 16 people have died, over 3.7 billion, and that's billion with a B, people have taken ivermectin. So the argument when it comes to about, oh, it's a horse dewormer, that's a bullshit argument. Now they're trying to go after the data, in particular, the Argentinian study. But there's been 16 clinical trials now just recently, because what happened? A lot of doctors had to do with the circle of compassion, right? They had to do what they had to do. They were people who were dying in front of them, and they've heard about this drug before. And once again, I want to make my point clear, because I make it on my show all the time. Ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine both work, but they are simply the gun. The bullet is the zinc, which gets into your system. Because when you look at all the protocols from all these doctors who have actually had success treating patients, I hate the fact that we listen to all these people who talk about all these studies and whatnot. No, give me doctors who have treated patients and let me know how they've had success during this time. And all of them who've dealt with hydroxychloroquine or ivermectin, zinc is the key. They also use vitamin C, vitamin D. Like I told you, I took liposomal C, which was able for me to get a lot of extra vitamin C in my system. I got COVID last Thanksgiving. So for me, I'm going to always think about what happened. We did our first show on ivermectin over a year ago. So we've been talking about it for a long time. But to get back to the question when Jesse asked and stuff, why aren't we allowed to talk about it? Why? Because we live in a fascist state, and true fascism, and I know this being a man who's 61% Southern Italian, Benito Mussolini's definition of fascism is when the government the corporations merge with the state, and they're all together. You guys know this, right? Now, big pharma, big tech, the military-industrial complex, they are all one with the government, and the government is simply just a PR firm for these big groups, these big corporations. So that's why they won't allow us to talk about it, because the drug is, once again, it's off patent, both hydroxychloroquine, both ivermectin, meaning that nobody can really grab a hold of it, big pharma, and hold it for themselves. There can be generic brands made. It's like 20 cents a pill right now, I think, for hydroxychloroquine, what they're sitting on their actual big stock. And ivermectin, you can get in like Mexico, where you can phone a doctor on certain networks, and you can get it for like $3 a pill. So there's no money to be made. So if you follow the money will lead you to where? All these bullshit drugs they use in the hospital when you have to get on, before you get on a ventilator. What is it? How do you say it? Remdesivir, right?
Yeah.
And which is $1,000, I think, or a couple $1,000 per treatment. You can't take it with a pill. You can only take it in a drip, so you have to do it in the hospital. And then the vaccine, you don't pay for it, but it comes out of our taxes collectively. And look how much money Big Pharma is making here.
My God.
And that's something we've been doing with To Hell and Back. Now we've kind of adopted, okay, let's go over the same players again. Last week we went over Johnson & Johnson's. We showed you they put asbestos in their talcum powder. Even when they had independent studies that say, hey, you got asbestos in your talcum powder, they didn't stop. People got mesothelioma, which is a life expectancy to live for 1 year. So they killed millions of people, not caring that they were doing so because they were making profits hand over fist. And what difference does it make if it's $1 million fine, a slap on the wrist when you're making billions, baby.
Yep.
And that's what's going on. And we are showing, just like what they did with the opioid situation, they're doing right now over here. They have no care for life. They
None.
don't care. And people need to understand that. So if you're trusting these assholes, you better go trust the right people. You better turn the other head, because these guys have shown that they don't care. And that's why they're shutting down talk of ivermectin. There's no money in it.
Yes. And that's why I don't listen to doctors, or like you said, like I don't trust the doctors either. But like, if you listen to everything, you can figure it out for yourself. Like it's maybe it's just like a common sense thing. But it's possible to look at all of the information and gather it up yourself. And it's very clear what's happening here. I don't know if they could make it more clear on this topic of how they're the fact that they're completely trying to shut down conversation of ivermectin at all. And there's a mass smear campaign against it should tell you a lot. Why are they doing that? Why are they doing that? It's because they want to delegitimize it. They want to make it a taboo. They want to make it a third rail topic of conversation, because Pasta's right. There's no money in it. And that's how this shit works. And that should disgust you and infuriate you and make you skeptical of all of these fuckers. Every last one of them. Side eye all of them.
Yeah.
And the so-called vaccine is presented now like it's a gospel solution. And
it doesn't even work.
It doesn't
get your booster.
It doesn't mitigate anything. Even the claim that if you have both shots and you contract COVID or you pass it on, that the symptoms will be slightly worse or slightly better and won't require hospitalization. There's no study, there's no aggregate data to prove that. And then beyond that, there's no aggregate data to prove the efficacy or effectiveness of the so-called vaccines. And there's been more than enough time to at least get studies like that started. Why isn't that happening?
They have them.
Not with Fauci as their fucking leader.
I think they know all of this information, but they want to just put out misinformation. Like, it's propaganda. This is how this works. And so they know what's happening. They just don't give a fuck if we know. They don't want us to know. They want us to just take our booster. Seriously, y'all, is it going to be like the, get 10 boosters and your 11th one's free? Like, we can get like one of those little punchy cards where we, I mean, is it going to be like that? Like, what the fuck is happening? And everybody's just like going along, not everybody, but people are just like going along with it and like they're using it to divide us too. And y'all are letting them. You hate each other over this shit. Really? You hate people who are afraid of injecting their bodies with something. These are known liars, especially like the Black community. Oh, watching white people lecture the Black community about this makes me so angry. Jesus Christ. Do you know what they've done to Black people in this country? Really? Really?
Yeah, Tuskegee.
Oh,
the Tuskegee.
How about Planned Parenthood?
I mean, they're still doing sterilizations in like prisons and at the border. Right now. I mean, come on, y'all. Really? You're gonna yell at some Black people for not wanting to get vaccinated?
Yeah, and to what Jesse was saying about those getting sick who've had it, Oscar De La Hoya, prize fighter, is in the hospital right now after he's had a double vax. He is super sick. So you're not convincing me that this vax is doing shit.
No.
Yeah. And if you just look at their raw data, as an election integrity person, I think that's why we are all kind of skeptical of what's going on. Roy's done a lot of media across the board. They talk a lot of foreign policy. Chanda comes from a big pharma background. Yourselves, when it comes to the, the security state, right? Like Julian Assange and stuff. We know what they do at elections. I follow that stuff. You look at what they're doing at the top, you understand manipulation of data. But if you just look at the raw data itself in theirs, and that's what probably the lowest number because it's being scrubbed, it's being hidden. I think they reported close to 12,000 deaths now, close to it around there. That's 12,000 deaths, right? Well, ivermectin has 16 deaths out of 3.8 billion people. Just those numbers alone should make you go, wait a second. Why would I do this when there's, a vaccine usually takes 10 years to get to market. And this one was rushed through in 2 years. And yet the CDC and the FDA, all these people who are approving these vaccines couldn't even come up with a solution, a therapeutic treatment for COVID other than telling you to take aspirin and go home and hope that you don't have to come back. I mean, how could people buy into this if you just look at that raw data alone?
Because they're scared. They
Yeah,
use
and-
fear.
and here's something
It's
too.
a fear manipulation. They do this
Yeah.
all the time. They
All
scare
the
people,
time.
and then your brain
Yes.
shuts off, and you're like, Jesus Christ, this is terrifying. I don't want to die. Give me that vaccine. Like I
That
don't want to.
vaccine.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's a fear thing. And I get that's a very persuasive way for them to control people because fear is very effective.
Yes. And
As-
I also want to say that they're manipulating the data too. Before I forget,
Mhm.
what they're doing is they're saying that you're not classified as somebody who's fully vaccinated until 2 weeks, 14 days after your second shots. Well, there's a significant amount of people who are getting COVID right after their second shot, right after their first shot, whatnot. And even though they've gotten the boop boop, they're still being classified as unvaccinated people. And that's
Mhm.
just ridiculous. It's a complete manipulation of the numbers. And that's something that we have to
And what
always
bothers
call
me
out
is
to
that
as well.
the definition of vaccinated is going to change now that we
Yeah.
have, booster upon booster. And
Boosters,
so
yeah,
now,
yeah.
like, I can't wait for like the 4 vaccinated people to start getting pissed off at the 3 vaccinated people who are pissed off at the 2 vaccinated people.
People,
And everybody hates each other because why didn't you get your other booster? And why, you know what I mean? Like
Well,
it's getting ridiculous.
It's already happening at our
Yes.
local Safeway. We went to pick up medications for my mother-in-law, and there was an older gentleman throwing a fit, demanding a 3rd booster shot right now. Like he was not leaving. The pharmacist was just like, they haven't even been released yet. Finally, they were just like, fine, give him a shot. I don't get him out of here. So
Yeah,
that's the fear we're dealing with.
Yeah.
to add to that, my partner, she was telling me the other day that now one of the rage trains people are on, people who've been vaccinated, they're angry at people who just got vaccinated, and they're saying to the newly vaccinated, why did you wait so long? How could you wait so long to get it? So it's like this unending rage train, as I said, by these people, most of whom are on the left, which is a phenomenon we could possibly talk about.
Oh yeah.
And it's like they're always finding or manufacturing a new way to
Hate each
get
other.
angry at people who are skeptical or skeptical in the least, whether they've been vaccinated or not. And I really don't know how to put my finger on that phenomenon, if you will, and find a cause.
I think
to
it's
it.
intentional. I think that there's an intentional messaging campaign on social media and in the media where they're using this sort of stuff to, I mean, look at the headlines, look at the CNN just did like a 2-hour segment the other day about how unvaccinated people are like the worst. I mean, it was like 2 hours of just like just bashing people who weren't vaccinated. Right. And that's, I mean, they're otherizing, they want us to fight amongst ourselves.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
there's like an intentional messaging campaign. I mean, if you don't think that there are a ton of bots and trolls right now stirring up drama over vaccines
Oh, yeah.
on social
Oh,
media,
yeah.
of course they are. They're using this. They're and this is what they do.
it's
They fi- if
psychological
they-
warfare.
Yes,
Like
if they
TDS,
find,
it's the
Psychological
same
warfare.
people who had
Yes.
TDS.
it's
They had
Russiagate,
Yep.
it's all of that stuff. It's all of
Yeah.
that stuff. All of that stuff is a very intentional misdirection and a method of division. Period.
Yeah. It's genius if you think about it, right?
It is.
The
They're
powers that
very
may
good.
be. What I do with my body and what I choose to put in it affects your health, right? Now you've created a scenario where forget about it. And I've said this to Fiorella, they put us in check, the elites, the predator class, whatever you want to call these people, the oligarchs. Okay, they put us in check. And if we don't watch it, it's going to be checkmate. I know you guys probably feel the same way as I do, where you have never seen it this divisive. You have never seen it this separated. I mean, all the things that we do, we're talking to people like, wow, it's so tribal right now. It's so crazy. Something's about to blow. And it's a shame. Anytime that I see our citizens in the street fighting each other, even when it's Proud Boys and Black Lives Matter, I get upset because I know that we all as people have a lot more in common, that meaning the plebs, than these assholes upstairs who've been putting out these methods, who've been putting us against each other. It's the old school divide and conquer. And this one was a doozy. It's psychological warfare at its best. You don't take the shot, it affects me. Hello? That's dangerous territory.
Yeah, and
Yes.
people are threatening other people's lives over
Yes.
this, and it's getting to the point where doctors
Celebrating each
are-
other's deaths.
Doctors
like-
are even doing that,
What the fuck
saying-
is wrong with you?
saying that the vaccinated ought to take priority over the unvaccinated.
Tom
Yes.
Chomsky.
The same
No.
people who call for healthcare as a human
Yeah,
right. are
they
the
want
same
Medicare.
people
Medicare
saying-
for all is in their bio. A lot of these people,
I know, right?
right? They don't even notice. They don't even recognize their own hypocrisy. It's amazing.
It is.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I'm not saying that there are not people's deaths that I don't celebrate, because I absolutely celebrated John McCain's death sayonara.
me too, me
I
too.
have no, dude was a terrible human being. He caused a lot of pain and suffering. But to like just your neighbor, just some dude, like a father of three who was an anti-masker or whatever, and you're going to celebrate that shit. Here's the thing. Here's what pisses me off. And I think what a lot of people are not grasping. You're spending way too much time being angry at those who are skeptical of the government than being mad at the government and the pharmaceutical companies and the insurance lobbyists and all of that stuff. They've created this environment of distrust where they've lied repeatedly over and over and over again, and they've done an immense amount of damage. And just that's just what we know about. Like, we know about the opioid scandal. We know about, I mean, there's so much that they've done that has been the Johnson & Johnson thing that you guys covered last week. They're obvious terror, like they have a history of being just absolutely horrendous in their business practices and all of that stuff. And so stop being mad at people who are skeptical of that, and be mad at the people who created that environment of distrust, who are giant, massive fucking liars, who are corrupt to the core, who care more about profit than your life. Be mad at that. If we didn't have a system like that created that level of distrust, it would be much easier to handle something like COVID or, whatever happens to come, around. Because there's going to be stuff, especially with climate change shit. All the ice is melting. There's stuff under there that we don't have any idea, So,
and with all this shit going on, we can't even talk about geoengineering.
I know. What the hell?
We can't. There's lots of things we can't talk about. Pasta. There's lots of things.
We can't even get there. We're too tied up. It's funny because, right, we do this whole thing now. We're Rockfin, right? But we're on YouTube for a couple segments. Then we're like, all right, everybody get on over to Rockfin because freedom of speech really doesn't even freaking matter anymore. You got to go over to Rockfin, where the revolution is, where we can just pretty much speak our mind or go over a report or talk about ivermectin and stuff like that. But also too, as well, you had to see this coming too with the division. The same people who are cheering on censorship are the same ones that are pro-vax right now too, as well. So it's just,
that's true. There's a lot of crossover.
Yeah.
And
there's a lot of authoritarianism running amok.
If you go back a little bit to when the first so-called vaccines were rolled out, particularly the Pfizer one, and look at the mainstream media information that was being put out, you can find a lot of more than just hints about how sketchy, for lack of a better word, all of this is. I found an interview that Sanjay Gupta at CNN did with I'm forgetting the CEO's name of Pfizer. Boros,
I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Something like that. And this was right when Pfizer rolled out the vaccine and it was approved for use. So Sanjay Gupta spends almost 9 minutes talking to the CEO of Pfizer. At first starts out saying it has been approved, then walks himself back really quickly and says that it's, I forget what other term he uses, but it's not approved. And then never
authorized
says
for emergency use.
Yeah, authorized. But
authorized.
he never says neither Sanjay Gupta nor the CEO says what it's authorized for. They don't bring up emergency use. And then at one point, the CEO is asked, have you taken the vaccine yet? And he says, no, I haven't taken it yet.
He still hasn't.
And his excuse then, or his justification then, was that he was waiting for it to be doled out to people who needed it before he took it. And you can believe that if you want, but you are eternally naive if you do. And you think if it was the magic, if it was the panacea it was touted to be, that he would be the first one to take it.
He was scheduled to take a big trip with a bunch of bigwigs to Israel last week, and they canceled his travel itinerary because they wouldn't let him in without the
vaccine.
And so what does that tell you when the CEO of this fucking company, this Pfizer company, who is profiting from most of these fucking jabs, won't take it That tells me I'm waiting for the poor to get it before I do. That's so noble.
Didn't
of
he used to
him.
be at the FDA too?
Yes, they all
this
used to.
revolving
They just
door,
go back
y'all.
and forth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Gottlieb went from the
revolving
FDA to
door.
Pfizer.
Yep.
I went from Pfizer
Yep.
to the
Yeah.
FDA.
Somebody also go from Pfizer to the Biden administration, and then there'll be lobbyists somewhere else. Or
Yeah.
Johnson and Johnson. Yeah.
Yes, it's like this melting pot of corruption. Like it's like a cesspool. It's very incestuous, and they all just like cross over into each other's grimy little worlds, and it's gross. Like we're controlled by psychopaths. So anybody trusting any of them,
Albert Boros or Boros, I think his name is. He's Greek.
Yeah, and he's a scumbag. All these people are scumbags. You don't get to that level of power without being
a scumbag.
Without being a scumbag, and they don't
I
care
think
about
General
you.
Lloyd Austin, right? Same thing.
Yeah,
Did General Lloyd Austin not get it too as well? You know.
Yeah. They don't care about you. They do not care. You are not. You're not a person to them. You're a profit. However, they can make money off of you. That's how all these people operate. That's why you have to be, like I said earlier, you have to side eye all of them. You have to be incredibly skeptical of all of these people. Everything that they tell you. My starting off point is they're fucking lying, and I go from there. And you know, there's going to have to be an immense amount for anything that any government agency or corporation tells me to be believed. It's going to have to be backed up with a significant amount of hard evidence for me to believe them, because why would anybody trust? This isn't, again, it's not like we don't have like there are things that we know. And that's, you know, that what do they say? Where there's one mouse, there's like, you know, if you see one mouse, you'll see 100. If there's one instance of them being corrupt scumbags, there's 100 you don't know about. So that's just what you know. You know what I'm saying? Like, nobody should trust these people. We should be extremely skeptical, and nobody should get mad about people who are skeptical. That's crazy to me.
I think we have to work on the way we communicate with each other too, as well. As I've been getting into this whole situation, I've seen a lot of conservative people, patriots, if you will, whatever you're, you know what I'm saying, they get mad with the whole mask thing. Well, I'm going in there, I'm not wearing my mask. I'm like, listen, your beef isn't with the people who are following these rules. Your beef is with the people who made these rules. And the only way we get these people who are following these rules to understand that we have to go after the people who made these rules is not by being a dick. It's explaining to them. So we have to be careful on our end. I mean, I pissed somebody off for calling somebody a sucker for taking the jab without realizing, this was early when everything was going on, not realizing the pressure what he had from his job and his kids and all this other stuff going on. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, the way we talk about this too, as well, is very, very important. We have to show people the receipts, and that's what this group is all about. Even down to the fact we have Robbie receipts in our group too, as well. We just got to continue to bring receipts. Who are you listening to? Who's telling you to wear a mask and take a vaccine? Well, let's look at these companies. Let's look at Johnson & Johnson. Let's look at Pfizer. Here it is right in front of you. Why are you going to trust these people? You know what I'm saying? So I think that is the next battle right now, is to make sure that we understand how to convince people that we shouldn't be trusting these fucking people. For us, it's so easy to see. I mean, when I wanted to learn about Julian, I would watch you guys and I'd be like, holy shit, look what the security state is doing. How could you ever trust these people? Look at the psychological games they're playing. You know, and when I start doing stuff when it comes to elections, I start showing people the receipts. Like, how could you ever trust these people? These people are in charge of our democracy. We're going to trust them. So it's very easy for us, but it's also very easy for everybody, just the common folk, to go with the flow. So we got to be very creative, very, very nice, very easy, find a way to get in there and get that information out there so people can open up their eyes, because it's the only way we're going to make things happen, is to really convince people in the proper manner. So
yeah, that's why I love your show. I think you guys are doing a great job of like telling these stories and getting it all out there. And I know you guys did Johnson & Johnson last week. So what do you guys have coming up this week? When is the show? Where can people find the show? Where can they find you guys? Let everybody know, because I think that we need more eyes on the show. I think you guys are doing really important work.
Thanks. Pasta, go ahead and tell them what we're doing this week.
Okay, this week on To Hell and Back, we'll be going over Pfizer. Look at what Pfizer's done around the world. Actually, I know you've given a finger, and that's kind of crazy, because I actually looked on WikiLeaks and I put in Pfizer. And man, did I!
There's always a WikiLeaks.
There's always a WikiLeaks. Go to WikiLeaks and see what, because they were caught hiding and keeping their mouths shut and trying to get away with it. And somebody leaked something on how they were being a very I know, right? Thank you, Julian. And I got a great, interesting story about Pfizer and what they did and how they used drugs. They tested drugs on children in Africa and killed them. Just tested it. Like, they were the rablats. You know what I'm saying? So we're going to have a story. We're going to talk about Pfizer for sure. But you can find us on
Wait,
What's
I
up?
have to. You just said it again in the show that you guys just did the other. I forget what show it was, but you say nobody's called you out for this yet, and it cracks my shit up. You say rablats instead of lab rats. And I love it, Pasta, so much. And I thought you said it one time on the show, and I was like, "Oh, he didn't mean like he just." But no,
I just did
like,
it again. Rablats.
like rablats. And I
Rablats.
think you did it like 3 times in that one show, and
That's
Shonda
awesome.
didn't call you out, Oz didn't call you out, and I'm like, he's saying
Sounds
rablats.
like it sounds like some Israeli government minister.
It is totally.
You know, I didn't even notice it
Minister
till
of
you just
Defense.
called
I'm
me
writing
out.
that down so I can call it when he does it.
Lab rats. We are the
Lab rats.
lab rats. You know how I speak. I got a show and I can't even
I
speak
know,
the
but
fucking
nobody's
language.
awesome
called you
catch,
out yet, and
Misty.
I'm like,
Awesome.
rablat. He said rablats. Why is no?
Why you gotta expose me, man?
Sorry,
You
you
should
can-
expose
if
Pfizer.
Okay,
Don't
okay,
expose
that's
me.
fair. That's fair. Actually. That's fair.
Well, we're on. I was gonna say something else. I was gonna put
About
Rockfin
sorry.
backwards. We're on Fakrin, and Rockfin.
Fakrin.
Sorry, my bad. We're on Rockfin. Obviously, we do the show there. So come on over and check us out. And if you haven't signed up for Roar Media, there are brothers and sisters from Washington. They're amazing people. I mean, we had an amazing experience all together. I wish you were there with us, Jesse. We were looking for you, but when we went to DC, it was just a great bonding moment. And I think we
so
all got
fun.
in a room and we said, all right, these are people who can work together. And we're going to continue to work together. I love doing the show with Chanda. You know what I'm saying? I'm obviously, there's nothing better in my life to ever come along than the Combo Couch, where I get to have a show where I get to speak my mind and speak my word and speak truth. You know what I'm saying? And it's amazing. But this has been one of my favorite projects to do. And I'm going to keep rocking with Chanda and Roar. And a shout out to Oz LaFave and Amber as well. The Roar fam. I mean, they're just amazing. And I'll let them brag about their show, and she should show her shirt. I was going to say Beauty and the Boomer. Did I say it right?
You did actually. You said it right. Yeah, we do a Saturday kind of tongue-in-cheek, make fun at the weekly headlines, and just call out the hypocrisy called Beauty and the Boomer. You know, trying to bridge those gaps, like Pasta says. You know, he's a boomer. I can sit down and talk to him. He understands. He gets it. And you know, I'd say a huge chunk of our audience are all boomers too, and we just have a good time. We do a reface dance off. I mean, it's fun, but most of it we're going after people. Like I went after Michael Moore last week, you know, for his hypocrisy all week. So, and then on Monday nights you can tune in for the Dive, which is a dive bar where we just sit and talk shit. We have the Hypocrites Hall of Shame. You know, some greats are Bill Moore or, you know, Sam Cedar. These are the people that we call out for their bullshit. And yeah, I love Roar Media. It's a nonprofit with, you know, we focus on women in independent media. When a lot of us women came into this space, like you, Misty, there wasn't a lot of us, you know. We had Kyle Kalinske and the
a bunch of white dudes. No offense,
a bunch of white dudes,
but
exactly.
a bunch of white dudes. Yeah.
So we've really focused on trying to get women's voices out there, you know, like, so, you know, if you know somebody who's well-spoken, well-opinionated, a lot of people are intimidated by the tech that it takes to pull just sitting down and doing like a podcast off. So we're there because we want to help out, you know. Oz engineers, he gets the show done for you. We got producers now. We have Hunter C that just started on with us, Hunter Carranza. She's doing a great job. I mean, just, yeah, hit us up, Roar Media Live on YouTube, or find us on Twitter too.
Awesome. Yeah,
Right
Roar's
on.
awesome. I love Roar. They came to DC and hung out with us. And that seriously, Pasta said it, that DC trip was magical. Like every DC trip is like kind of magical. You get to meet people in real life and you're with people that get it. And so it was a lot of fun to be in the same room with so many people who get it and who are on the same page, and to be able to come up with these great ideas like the show that you guys are doing and brainstorm and all of that stuff. That's why people will still give a lot of shit to, you know, organizing these marches or protests or whatever. And I think they're unbelievably important because it gives us the opportunity to grow community, and to be in a space with people that we can talk to and bounce ideas off of and brainstorm and organize and all of that stuff. So yeah, the DC trips are amazing. And I love the show. Everybody needs to check it out. Whoa. Was that a horn?
Guess who's there? Watch.
Yeah.
When she comes out of the car right there, you're gonna see the Bieber Alex.
Your Uber's
Come
here.
on, you got a
Your
show to go
Uber's
to.
here.
Let's go. 6 o'clock. Let's go.
Okay, but actually I do have a show right now. I'm supposed to
I
be
know, she's gonna-
on the
yeah.
vigil right now. I'm late. So yeah, thanks for coming on, guys. It was really great to talk to you.
Thanks
Thanks for
having me.
Everybody
having
check
us.
out the show, check out the Convo Couch, check
Yes.
out Roar Media, and we will catch everybody next time. Thanks everybody for watching.
Love you guys.
Thanks guys.